So my talk is called Designing Tomorrow, How AI Will Redefine Engineering and the Skills That Matter. What I'm actually going to talk about predominantly is about thinking and all different types of thinking, creative thinking, digital thinking. How do we think? How do we learn how to think? How do we teach people how to think? And I'm hoping that my slides will be thought-provoking, because that's the purpose of conferences like this, to bring people together, to collaborate and to think and to share ideas. So, brilliant introduction from Brian. Thank you so much. That was very good. My name is Lucy Batley. I own a company called Traction, and we specialise in writing AI strategies for organisations, both in the public and private sector. Spoiler alert, I am not a coder. I'm not a computer scientist or a software engineer. I am not an academic either. I am an industry practitioner. I'm actually a designer by trade, and my past was specialising in designing and building bespoke technologies, and we now use design thinking methodologies to write AI strategies for businesses. So I'm going to talk a little bit about design thinking, just to get us talking about how we can think creatively, which is one of my themes. So my background, I started at the dawn of the internet, and I have got a 30-year career because I'm the granny of tech. So this was the very first website that I designed as a 25-year-old cocky graphic designer, thinking that I was being really clever. That is actually what the website looked like. I don't know if anybody remembers Adobe Flash. So that had just come out. There was no buttons. You had to click on the images to get the content. Fortunately, the band thought it was brilliant, and I got away with being Emperor's new clothes and pulling the wool over their eyes. I also had great pleasure of working with David Bowie, although I never met him. We used to design, they were called kiosks, but basically point of sale, so digital interfaces to help promote him. So we all know that David Bowie was very avant-garde in terms of his music, but he was also very much forward-thinking in terms of technology. And it's quite interesting that the fashion industry and the music industry are always kind of ahead of the curve in terms of trends, and they pick up on things like the new technology, and they're doing it with AI at the moment as well. And my big claim to fame is that I designed and developed the CD-ROM, definitely showing my tech age, to launch the euro into Barclays Bank Small Business Division. So that's my background. Skip forward 30 years, and we, as I said, we use design thinking to apply it to AI. So we design systems and platforms, and without wanting to sell myself, I wanted to put this slide in just to explain what we do. So we can build bespoke software, but we tend not to, but we will build bespoke APIs or using existing APIs. So we go in and map out IT systems for companies, and then we build bespoke data platforms where we store, manage, design, and log lots of different data. And I call the APIs, I call them data vacuum cleaners. So we design the data platforms in a particular way so that the data is organized so that it's beneficial for the organization, and then we use that to train the AI models. So the important bit is making sure that it's aligned with the strategy of the business and also their objectives. So that's just an overview of what we do. What I want to talk about in my talk today, though, is will AI make us obsolete? Are we on the cusp of artificial general intelligence, which is where I will say the Skynet robots are going to come and kill us? So that's the big shift at the moment in terms of the big tech. They're all striving in a huge arms and technological race and a financial race to get to the nirvana, which is designing, reasoning, thinking, computation. So true artificial intelligence, which has been branded as artificial general intelligence, just to confuse everyone. So the big news last year, 2024, was all about robotics and creating new types of robotics, which is still in its early phase. This year is all about AI agents. So these are autonomous agents, and again, it's still in early stages, but this is where the AI can start, again, towards that AGI, start reasoning and thinking for itself, and it can do that without human intervention. So it's not just about giving it an instruction, it's that the AI will go off and start learning from the instructions that you've given it and be basically autonomous. So that begs the question, is all our jobs going to be obsolete if we don't need programmers or computer scientists to input it? Where does that leave everybody? It's going to have a massive, massive impact. The reason I've got Apple on the screen is they've launched Apple Intelligence, which is just a branding gimmick, but they're about to launch the first true AI telephone. We think that apps will disappear. So going back to my earlier diagram where you're sucking information up. So I think things like websites and apps, eventually they'll change or they'll disappear and they'll just become data points for the artificial intelligence to take information from. But the real biggie that Apple did is that they've strategically moved all of their data into Foundation DB, which basically means that they can access billions of databases all in one go, which is amazing. A huge shift in technology. And they're called AI agents, but I like to call them butlers. So we're really at the stage where you'll be able to open your phone in the morning and talk to Siri. Siri will tell you that your train's running late. Do you want me to ring Brian and tell him you're going to be a little bit late? And don't forget your umbrella because it's raining outside. So as this technology comes and it's the speed that it's coming, we need to start thinking about what implication that's going to have, not just on computer science and software engineering, but all of our jobs. So when I've been thinking about this and talking to people about it, I keep having the conversation of thinking about what artificial intelligence can't do. So it can't do physical things. Is it creative, for example? Really good question. So artificial intelligence doesn't have emotion or experience. It can mimic creativity, but it's basically essentially guessing. So this is Midjourney, which is a generative image AI app, which I use. So last year they launched a zoom out feature, and this is where it got a bit spooky and a bit interesting. So you've seen all the putting the Pope in a designer jacket. This is Obama on the catwalk. But as you zoom out, the AI is creating what's going on in the background of the image, and it suddenly starts to get a bit weird about emancipation of the slaves. Zoom out again, and it turns into Babylon. I didn't ask the computer to do that. The artificial intelligence is making that up, and while it's guessing and doing that, is it creative? I don't know. Is it thinking for itself? On the other side, in terms of creative thinking, I don't use it for this, but a lot of people use it for ideation because they get stuck when they're starting on a blank piece of paper. I tend to use it for, I tend to play with it, basically. So this I did, again, with Midjourney. I basically just stripped out all of the lyrics from the Beatles' Yellow Submarine, and this is what the image that it came up with, which I thought was pretty cool. So as we are in a time of unprecedented technology, where does that leave us? And I really, really strongly believe that we are on the precipice of either a utopian or a dystopian future without wanting to do the scaremongering. Are the Skynet robots going to come and kill us? I don't know. I hope not. But we do need to start thinking about that. And I think that we need to start thinking about the bigger picture. So as this technology comes in, my biggest fear is not the robot's going to kill us. My biggest fear is that people aren't waking up and smelling the coffee and realizing what a massive impact AI is going to have on absolutely everything. So we now need to think not just about what skills do we need in the next 5 years, but what's society going to look like in the next 10, 20, 50, 100 years, and what role do we play in shaping that? And I think conferences like this are important because we need to start having those conversations now, sooner rather than later, especially when America, for example, has just gone hell for leather in terms of innovation-first approach and not thinking about ethics and regulation, which I'll touch upon. So what's around the corner? Can AI read our minds? Yes, Japanese research program last year proved that AI can read your mind. Skip forward to physical implants. So Elon Musk, our dear friend, launched Neuralink last year. So this guy had an accident when he was scuba diving. He's quadriplegic. He can now control his digital chess pieces just using thought. And Synchron launched in January, have put in physical implants that allow you to write WhatsApp messages just by thinking. So the ethical implications of this are huge. The possibilities are infinite in terms of, you can imagine what this is like for people who've had brain damage due to an accident or stroke victims. So yin and yang, good and bad with everything. If you think AI is frightening, wait till quantum computing comes out, which is really scary, which is going to multiply everything more, again, still in the early stages. However, quantum computing works by combining AI, but also at a molecular level. So the implications for things like biomedicine, bioscience are going to be phenomenal. I think we're going to see new pharmaceuticals, new medicines. My hope is that we'll have a shift towards personalized medicines. So everybody responds to treatments in different ways. The example I always give is I'm a perimenopausal woman. My hormones are completely different to every other woman in the room, and my hormones fluctuate over a period of time. They're already trialling this in Holland, so there's sort of Zoe-type patches where you've got, it'll take my hormone reading every day, and then my AI will adjust my medication so that it's personalised just to me. I think that's really exciting. From my background. And an oldie but a goldie, this is one of my favourite tech stories, Tech for Good. So they've used drones to fly out and put sensors on top of sperm whales, and then they've used advanced AI to track its language and analyse the language and analyse the patterns, and they've already identified the word dive. So we're not far off being able to talk to our cats and dogs, which will be really interesting. And you can see the implications for sustainability in terms of finding out animal behaviour patterns. Point of the slides is the possibilities are infinite. So how do we prepare, and how do we prepare our students and our successors for this? So while I was making these slides, I was conscious of this. So personally, I use ChatGPT. I think it's amazing. I've been using it. I mean, I was an early adopter. I've been using it since it came out, and it's just phenomenal. But I was conscious when I was looking at this the other day that you can kind of sum up everything about generative AI in this one slide. So what can I help with? Ask anything. That's the key bit. Ask anything. We've now got access to all of the information and knowledge in the globe. So we need to be thinking about what we are actually asking it. And then interestingly, underneath it says ChatGPT can make mistakes. So the other very key thing is about it still hallucinates because it's using statistical analysis. It's guessing what the next image or pixel or word is, and it gets it wrong. But humans get it wrong. Humans talk nonsense. We all talk nonsense. I've also started, I joke now that I've started hallucinating. I read so many articles. It's moving so fast. The technology is at such a pace that I'm struggling to keep up with it. I'm at the coalface every day. And I've started hallucinating. I've started making up quotes because I'm reading so much. So yes, you've got to check it, but also it's important what you're actually asking it and how you instruct it. It's called prompt engineering, but I call it instruction writing, brief writing. And just to touch upon, yes, you'll all know this, basically you can write code, which begs the question, what happens to software engineers? They need to kind of up the game and become more kind of managers of code, which is something that we're going to talk about in this conference. My key message is always that AI is a tool, like an axe. One of the first technologies, axes allowed us to chop up carcasses so we could have more interesting meals. So it was used for good. We also use it to kill our predators and our enemies. So again, a tool that can be used for good and bad, but it is a tool. AI is not a magic wand. It is a piece of equipment, and we need to learn how to use it and how to use it responsibly and ethically. And I always say that education is a two-way street. As we're learning off the AI is learning off us. So all the data that we put in is training the models. But you can manipulate that for your own advantage. So as I said, I've been using ChatGPT for 2 years, and I've been very conscious about what I actually put into it. So I've drunken conversations on a Friday night pretending it's Yoda, but then delete it. So, and I type in when I'm putting my instructions in because I want to consciously think about what I'm asking it. And I've got it to the point now where it knows everything about me. It's brilliant. It knows my tone of voice. It knows the way that I work. It's got memory. It's just superb. But we have to have that dialogue and that conversation with the AI. And just to touch upon the shift in direction in terms of prompting. So this is Mid-Journey. So traditionally, CGI, this would take 3, 4, 5 days to design and render. This took 20 seconds using Mid-Journey. However, you need quite technical knowledge in terms of, you need photography knowledge to understand where the camera angles are. You need quite technical because you have to go through VoIP to access it. And also you have to put in things like aspect ratio. However, 2 weeks ago, ChatGPT launched image generator, and now there's a massive shift which has been happening anyway to natural language, English. So because we are from an English-speaking nation, we've got a huge advantage in terms of being able to instruct the computer as well. So this is groundbreaking. This was literally 2 weeks ago. So this is an example of how in English, plain English, so I don't have any coding or technical knowledge. This image is pixelated. Can you make it clearer? Comes up with this. You can see it's slightly changed the stance of the man, but it's pretty bloody good and the quality is amazing. So then I start playing around with it, put a hat and shoes on it, which is great. Interestingly, it's changed. And again, this is the machine doing it, not me. It's changed it from black and white to a colour image. It's changed the ethnicity of the guy. So again, refining that's not... So, for example, if I wanted to change his hat to a ski hat, it would probably start changing the image. But you can see the direction of travel and the speed of how it's going. It's all going to be natural language English, basically. And as I said before, we are still in its infancy. I don't know who's got kids here, but I like to think of training the AI models as teaching a child. You have to tell it off when it's not doing it correctly. But we are just at the start of the AI journey. We are literally at the early stages. There's loads for us to learn and there's loads for the models to learn. So we can't teach technology because it's moving too fast. So if I wrote a course module for Brian, and even if I stayed up all night and wrote it tomorrow, it'd be out of date. The technology that's coming out is unprecedented in terms of speed. So it's the speed that we can do things, but also the speed that it's changing. So how can you teach students if you can't teach them the technology? So we think you should be teaching principles. So we've come up with a set of AI design principles. So we've worked on these with a number of different customers, and they're different and we can change them and they have to be flexible. But I've picked out the kind of my top 5 ones. So the first one is data. So if you're from a professional organisation and you want to use AI, you've got to think about the data. Forget about the technology. You can do anything with the right budget. You can do absolutely anything. You've got to have really good quality data. You don't necessarily need masses amount of it anymore. You used to, but there's a change in thinking with that. But you need to have good quality data. Bad data in, bad data out. And more importantly, you need to know what you want to do with your data. So, okay, you've got all this information, so what? What do you actually want to do with it? So we always say that data without a story is just a bunch of numbers. You need to think about what problems are you trying to solve, what business objectives are you trying to align with. Data is absolutely fundamental. Rule number 1, get some good data. Human AI collaboration. So when we go in to do our workshops, we always say, forget about the tech. What human problems are you trying to solve? Focus on the humans first. I believe that the future of AI is going to be more about collaboration and mixed teams. But we've got to think about what you're trying to do for the people. This is where this human-centric approach comes in. You can do anything you want with the technology. What do you want to do with it? Think about the problems that you're trying to solve. Don't do AI just for AI's sake. I get a lot of CEOs coming in going, look what you're doing with AI. Can you come and sprinkle some magic AI dust on our business? And I'm like, well, what do you want to do with it? I don't care. I just want to be able to tell people that I'm doing AI. No, that's not the right way to approach it. It's got to be about problem solving. So we have to start thinking about how do we solve problems. And to quote Spidey, with great power comes great responsibility. I'm very keen about pushing responsible AI and ethical AI. Ethics is always a bit of a boring, a bit like cybersecurity. Nobody cares about cybersecurity until it all goes horribly wrong. And then people wake up and smell the coffee. Does anybody remember this last year? So Google launched their version of their large language model to compete with ChatGPT. They launched it too quickly. They didn't test it properly, and it was an absolute disaster. So this is February last year, caused what's been known as the Gemini woke scandal. So when you're developing AI, it's got things called temperatures, so you can turn the temperature dials up and down. So you can have, your response can be more creative, less creative, or if you're writing an email, more formal, less formal. Google, in their wisdom, turned their woke dials up to maximum woke effect and inadvertently made their large language model racist against white people. So people were searching and getting black Nazis and Asian female popes. Absolute car crash disaster. They had to pull it all down straight away. They lost $70 billion off their bottom line overnight. So be careful about what you're doing. The internet is inherently biased, and the internet's been used to train the data, which has made it inherently biased. You think they'd learn the lesson? No, it didn't. So this happened in January. Meta launched this. So this is from human AI collaboration. Think about your customer experience or your user experience. So they launched these, and they call them AI agents. They're not agents, they were profiles. And they were open and honest and transparent that they were AI rather than humans, but they got the tone of voice completely wrong. So they had, hi, I'm Liv, I'm a black gay mama too. Totally car crash with the audience. They hated it. Again, they had to pull it down within 48 hours, and it cost them billions of dollars. I was talking about this recently, and somebody went, so what? The big tech, the Googles and the Apples and whoever else have got the money. It doesn't matter. $70 billion is loose change to them. It does matter. It does matter, and we need to take responsibility for that. So ethics and responsibility is a key thing, and it should be at the heart of everything that we do. And just to touch upon sustainability, making sure your supply chain. So at the moment, the AI models need massive amounts of data, and they need massive amount of compute power, which is a huge drain on resource. So a 5-minute search on Google is equivalent to boiling a kettle. An inquiry on ChatGPT uses 0.5 litres of water. It's completely destroying the planet. And we're going to need more computation as more people are using it. So this is a huge problem. I'm hopeful that we'll use AI to come up with new methods of energy and new lithium batteries and new all sorts of different things. But at the moment, it's still really impacting on the environment, and people aren't aware of it. And finally, just because we're at a computer science conference, I was wanted to touch on hardware. This is the back of my TV and computer in my house. If somebody can sort this mess out, I'll give them billions of dollars. So yeah, don't forget about the infrastructure and the hardware. So what skills do we need? Very difficult to say. We are not Mystic Meg, and we can't go into the future. I do strongly believe, though, that business models are going to change and they're going to flatten out. So this is a typical hierarchical business model. I've specifically used a tech version of it. I think these will flatten into projects. So direction of travel that we're anticipating is that work will become more project-based. So you need more flexible workers, and you need people to have better, multiple skills, but also I'm a firm believer of collaboration gets better results. So you need to start bringing diverse teams together. So it shouldn't just be computer sciences or digital people from your staff. You need to bring ethics into it, psychologists, designers, HR, legal, get lots of different people in the room, throw a problem on the table, and you'll get different perspectives and you'll get better results. I really think the future should be about human AI collaboration, but also collaboration in humans and mixing it up. And a good example of this is, does anybody remember this? One of the most unlikely collaborations known to humanity, and one of the best-selling singles in the late 80s. Completely different. So who'd have thought that rap and heavy metal or rock would merge together? So my point is, we need to elevate the software engineers of the future. They need to become less about writing code and more about orchestrators of their projects. So they need to be, and I'm sure you're already doing this, Brian, you need to be able to go from design concept right through to the project management bit and get them involved with all of it. But we need to elevate the thinking about it. Good example of AI, and I couldn't correct this, so he's doing a bit of a Harry Potter job and not holding the baton properly. So yeah, software engineers need to think more like designers, storytellers, curators, need to think about ideas, and that's what our universities should be. They're ideas factories. So we need to support people and encourage them to work together and collaborate together, but also to think differently and think creatively. And I just want to put this in because my very good family friends come from the fine art department. So a lot of controversy at the moment about copyright theft, creative theft, and that the large language models have stolen all the books known to humanity. Whilst I strongly applaud that artists should be compensated for their work, and if the big tech companies can pay for their electricity bills, they can also pay for their creative intellect. However, I also think it's about education. So if I stood here and read out an abstract from To Kill a Mockingbird, is that copyright infringement? Or am I sharing that knowledge with you? And the example I like to use is back in the salons, they used to train fine art students by making them copy the masters, and they would copy and copy and copy until they got the techniques right, and then they would evolve and discover their own styles. And I think that's quite an interesting way of working. Not sure if anybody's seen the Beastie Boys documentary on Netflix recently, worth a watch. It's run a bit like an Apple launch, which is a bit weird, but really interesting story. But what struck me was that these guys didn't know what they were doing. They were just basically messing about. So it was 3 guys, unfortunately one of them died. Three kids who met at college, became really, really good friends. They didn't know what they were doing. They knew they wanted to get into music. They went and collaborated with lots of different producers until they found their own style. So again, a bit like copying the masters. But what struck me more than anything is they were having fun. And I think fun's a really important part of the thinking process, and particularly the creative process. And just to finish up, we produced some of the greatest minds in tech. So America might be ahead with their financially and what they're doing, but we provided the brains. All of these came out of UK and independent Scottish universities. So these are the godfathers of tech and the godfathers of AI. So this is what we should be doing. We should be developing our next generation of thinkers. And how do we do that? By being curious, being inquisitive, thinking differently, thinking outside of the box, thinking creatively. Because I'm absolutely convinced we need to start asking the right questions. AI will give us any of the answers that we could possibly ever want, but we humans need to start understanding how to ask the right questions. Thank you very much. That's my talk. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lucy. I'm going to just wait for these microphones to turn green, and then we can take some questions from the audience. So who's got the first question? Don't be shy.
Oh, right at the back. Keep your fit.
Just so you know, we are recording all of the sessions, which is the reason for the microphone. So if you have a question, if you wait for the microphone to come to you.
So I saw the slides on there on the Google. I remember that. I've worked with Google for over 10 years. Thoughts on reputational damage. So you said at the end of there, you were talking about collaboration and what we're trying to build, but safety is paramount because it's one wrong click and you end up making your company and losing billions of pounds. So CrowdStrike and others. So safety, I think, should be in your highest priority. When
we put it should be the ethics, responsible AI should be at the heart of everything that we design, and we do that because we're a responsible company. Some people won't be though, and there will be some sort of disaster. I'm convinced there'll be some sort of online Grenfell level disaster, not necessarily a cyber attack, and then they'll clamp down on it because they'll have to, particularly in the eve of artificial general intelligence, where they're going to be autonomous and they're going to start thinking for themselves. They'll have to regulate it. Something will happen. It'll either be the Donald Trump's trade wars or it'll be some sort of artificial intelligence disaster, and then they'll just regulate it. And they'll regulate it the same as pharmaceuticals or nuclear. However, that will only be the foundation models, the base models, whether people are using that ethically or not. So deep fakes are a good example. And the problem for me is the ethics is that America at the moment have just gone, we don't care about it. In fact, we like deep fakes. I don't know if anyone's seen Trump's Gaza promotion. Yeah, it's just bonkers. It's the humans that are the problem, not the technology. It's the AI is not creating deep fakes. It's the humans programming the computers.
Yes, good question.
Hi, Lucy. Thank you for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. I particularly enjoyed all the imagery that you had in it, so thank you very much for that. I was curious just to understand who those people were in that last slide when you mentioned the UK and Scottish contributors. Just wanted to know who they were.
Go on, this is a test. So this is Alan Turing, who invented the Turing test. And ChatGPT's just passed it. So that's revolutionary. So that's where you've got a human and a computer in a room and a blind screen, and at the point where you can't tell which, you ask it questions and when you can't tell the difference, we've reached artificial intelligence, true artificial intelligence. This is, can't remember his name, the internet guy, Tim. Yeah, I always get his name wrong. Steve Wolfram, who's an absolute legend, godfather of AI. Jeff Hinton, who came up with the transformer coding. So basically, he's amazing. He's responsible for also so machine learning. Alan Turing, machine learning's been around for decades. Jeff Hinton invented the transformer model. So that's basically where you can ask loads of questions all simultaneously. It was the forerunner of Google's algorithm. Interestingly, the young man at the back might be able to confirm this. Jeff Hinton at Google wrote a white paper, which is what was used to develop ChatGPT. But it was originally written by him, I think, in 2018. Yes, that's this guy in the middle. So he's Mustafa Suleiman. Brilliant book, The Coming Wave. Absolutely brilliant book. Although it's out of date. He only wrote it a year ago and it's completely out of date. And I can't remember his name as well, so I'm terrible with names. He's AlphaFold guy, which is now owned by Google. Well done. Well done. Yeah, but they're all British. They're all from the UK. And the sad thing is, well, not for them, because they've made a lot of money. Apart from Alan Turing, they've all gone to America. So they're trained here, and then the money sweeps them off their feet. But yeah, amazing people, all of them, for different reasons.
Thank you.
Not enough women on the screen. Just put that one in there.
Hi, Lucy. Thanks for that. It's really interesting. Just a question. A lot of the businesses that we work for are really enjoying the hype of AI and, as you say, are wanting it just for wanting its sake and having no idea how their staff or their businesses are using it or implementing it. So I feel that we're kind of sleepwalking into a major disaster for a lot of small businesses in the UK, because there's so much publicity on how to use it and why we should have it, and not as much on, how they should be using it responsibly.
Yeah.
How do you think we can get that message out?
I think it's got to come from early stage when you're training them, which is why I made the big point about ethics. Brilliant question and difficult one to answer. We try to instill it, but if I'm really honest with you, and I won't name names, companies aren't interested in it. They're like, yeah, we'll have to do it, tick a box. It's not. It should be at the forefront of what they're thinking about, and doing it by default. So America's really lax about America first, money first. We want to be the rulers of the world in AI. The other side of the pendulum's the EU AI Act, which is now in force, and it's really, really strict. So it's kind of, the pendulum's doing this at the moment, and hopefully it'll land in a minute. The worry is that for 6 months we've been saying that the UK regulations will align with the EU AI Act. And there was a Paris AI Action Summit in the beginning of February, and the only two countries not to sign the global declaration was the UK and the USA. And this is all to do with bloody Trump's tax tariffs. The UK have aligned themselves with America to do that innovation first. Forget about And they've actually proactively said that they're going to forget about bias and ethics, which I think is a massive mistake.
Well, I was at a talk recently where I had a view from somebody that said the reason that the UK hadn't signed that was because they thought it would really restrict the UK's growth in AI, which I thought was kind of bonkers, because it's kind
bonkers.
of the
Like I say, something will happen and then they'll clamp down on it. Great question. How do you instill that into companies? It's like the sustainability bit. It's not. It should be higher up the agenda, and it's not, unfortunately.
One over there.
Thanks, Lucy. Really enjoyed it. And I love the fact that we've kicked off a tech conference with a real focus on humanity. That's no surprise to me, because I see people rushing towards technology all the time without doing the due diligence and thought. And what appears to me as a paradox, really, is that what's your view on AI having a detrimental impact on what it means to be human? Quite a philosophical question, but in terms of our ability around critical thought. You know, we're getting the answers from everything. It started with Google, right? We're getting AI to produce left, right, and center. And I don't know about you, but I've been using ChatGPT a lot as well. And actually, I've stopped doing as much due diligence as I used to do. And I slap myself on the wrist for it. But that's happening. So I can see it myself in terms of that critical thinking just being diluted over time as I gain confidence in the AI. So paradox between what it means to be human and critical thinking, critical thought, versus advancement in AI and technology.
That's a brilliant question. Yes, so as I said before, we need to think about what AI can't do or what AI hasn't got. So it hasn't got experience, it hasn't got emotions, but it'll mimic emotions. And I'll be honest, I've got a relationship with my AI. We chat all down, thank you and please and thank you. And I treat it like a colleague. In fact, I treat it like a team of colleagues. I have these different problems, so I ask it different questions. But going back to your comment, that's because I've got 50 years of experience of being a human, and I'm an expert on it, but I'm also, as I said, very conscious about what I'm asking it. So the generation of I can say kids, sound like a granny, the students that are coming through now who've done their dissertations and all their work using ChatGPT are missing out on the experience, but it's a massive problem for academia. And the system's broken. The way we judge and do exams needs to change dramatically. We need to train it with the AI. Yes, so how do you train that experience? How do you know right from wrong? And it is very convincing because it comes across as being confident and you trust it, and it's not always accurate. And even now, ChatGPT puts the source references. They're not. You need to check them. But I think there'll be new roles come out. There'll be fact checkers. And interesting, so my daughter's 12, and I always test out on her. And she's grown up of taking the stance of trust nothing, question it first, which I think is brilliant. I don't know where she's got that from. Probably from me. But brilliant question. I don't think I've answered it very well. But yes, how do we train that critical thinking and the judgment? Yeah, it's vital.
Okay, folks, in order to stick to the schedule, I'm going to call time there, but you'll have noticed in the programme that Lucy will be on the plenary panel right at the end of the schedule. So if you haven't managed to ask your questions now, you'll be able to do that then. So just I'd like to ask you one more time to thank Lucy very much for kicking us off.